the best place to work.
I love working here.
I feel very blessed.
I love it here.
I look forward to coming to work every day, being a part of this team.
Like a family away from home.
Where everyone feels like everybody knows their name.
The city that supports you, we see that with our benefits.
A pension, vacation days, job security.
Being able to be heard.
We feel valued, we feel respected.
Lee Summit is a very progressive city.
It's growing, it's thriving.
We have this drive towards not just doing a job, but doing it with a spirit of excellence.
I had the opportunity to continue to grow, regardless of 30 plus years doing this kind of work.
It's more than just dollars and cents.
We're here really to give back.
Providing a service to better a community.
To go out and serve people.
To be a part of something bigger than yourself. If I would have known what I know now, years ago, I would have been here much sooner.
Hello, Lee Summit. I'm Jordan. Here's your flash briefing for the week of September 8th. City Council will meet for a regular session Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. Meetings are open to the public or watch live on the city's YouTube channel. If you can't watch, catch the recorded meeting on demand on the YouTube channel or by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Lee Summit Fire Department at a fun-filled open house on September 20th from 9 a.m. to noon at Fire Station Number 6, located at 101 Northeast Blackwell Road. Bring the whole family to tour the fire station and walk through an inflatable house to learn about fire safety. Don't miss this opportunity to honor their legacy and join the celebration. The city is seeking public input on walkable and bikeable connections from the Rock Island Trail to downtown Lee Summit, as well as wayfinding signage that would be beneficial for trail users. There will be a public meeting held on September 20th from 8 a.m. to noon at the Hardman Park Trailhead and the Green Street Market. The meetings will be held in an open house style format. September is Emergency Preparedness Month. Have you discussed how to reach family and where to meet up in case of an emergency? Disasters can occur at any time, making it essential to have a plan, build an emergency kit, and stay informed. Stay safe with LS Aware, the city's free alert system designed to keep residents and businesses informed of emergencies, such as weather events. Learn more at lsaware.net. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
Traditionally, we think as police officers, those responding to law enforcement needs within the community. But honestly, we are there to serve our citizens, and our citizens do go into crisis. They do have mental health crises, and we're being called to those scenes on a regular basis. In order to help serve those citizens better, we did initiate the Crisis Intervention Team Program. These are officers that are specially trained to de-escalate crisis situations. Recently, we've brought co-responders onto the scene, licensed qualified mental health professionals housed within our police department, and they respond with those officers directly to those scenes where a crisis is occurring so they can interact with that citizen and get them the help they need right there on that scene.
The co-responders are either a bachelor or master level in a behavioral health related field. They wear plain clothes, they don't carry weapons or anything like that.
I have a police radio that I listen to all day. Listen for, those key words: mental health, behavioral health, crisis.
There's a lot of officers that just call for me. I have my own radio number.
I also have the ability to self-dispatch to them and say 982 is en route.
Officers en route, 914 Armstrong.
So typically I arrive after they've made it safe. I'll make contact and get kind of the rundown, and then I just kind of jump right in.
Like, hey, my name's Allison. I'm a mental health professional. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take you to jail or arrest you.
Sometimes all a person needs is a voice, someone neutral, someone outside that, can listen. I do a lot of safety planning, including family, their support network, who's close to you. If they're home alone, who can come over and hang out with you today? Can we lock away your sharps? Can we put up your meds? Do you need meds? Can we get you over to the urgent care to get you assessed for your medications? Some of them also are like, oh, I'm so glad you came. This made me feel so much better.
Our main goal as co-responders is to, one, get people connected to the services that they need, and also divert from emergency rooms and jails.
And they almost get a different view of the police responding. That lets me know you care and the officers care.
Please, how can we help you?
My husband has...
In 2020, we had 722 mental health related calls for service. 2022, by that time, 1,479. These mental health related calls for service are increasing. How we're responding to that is increasing the number of crisis intervention team officers we have available, as well as the number of co-responders we have available to respond on these calls.
So what I think is important for the community to know about the co-responder program is that we're here, we exist. All you have to do when you call 911 is ask for us. You know, say, hey, I want a co-responder to respond to this crisis, and we'll go. I was really struggling about 8 years ago on my personal journey with mental health, and I met some amazing social workers and amazing programs that have helped me get to where I am today. I really couldn't see myself doing anything else. We want to help, and that's what we love to do.
So I had a client, we got a call, she had some suicidal ideations, and she really felt that she had nobody. And and getting to know her story and getting to know who comes around and sees you, well, then we found a support person and they responded immediately. And we made a plan. I called back and checked on her in an hour, and then I checked on her in 2 hours. We were able to get her into the additional services to where she talks to someone every week or more. I just took a person that really just thought they had nobody and nobody would show up for them, and show them you do. And you'll be amazed who is in your corner if you just simply say, I need a little help.
The City of Lee Summit has hundreds of traffic lights across its more than 1,000 lane miles, all managed by the city's Public Works traffic technicians. The work happens inside those metal boxes on the side of each intersection. Inside, technicians program a device called the controller. The controller communicates directly with each signal head via underground wires, telling each light when to turn on and off based on a programmed cycle. City traffic engineers design this cycle to allow traffic to flow as efficiently as possible for that particular intersection. In order to best match current traffic patterns, they install something called a detection system. Detection systems have taken many forms over the years, from sensors in the pavement to radar boxes. But in Lee Summit, they primarily consist of cameras, which workers mount above the traffic signals. These cameras don't record video or your speed. Instead, they monitor the spaces at the front of the intersection and identify when a vehicle is present in a specific spot. Once a vehicle is identified, the detection system sends a message to the controller, which then adapts its standard cycle to best serve the cars that are present. The pedestrian button works in a similar way. When the button is pressed, the controller receives a signal, requesting that it allow that section of the pedestrian walkway to go, which it then inserts into the signal pattern. Technicians also install something called a conflict monitor. The conflict monitor is a device in which they program all the potential patterns of lights that would lead to a collision. If the other systems mistakenly trigger those patterns, the conflict monitor sends the intersection into flash, causing all lights to flash red and directing drivers to treat it like an all-way stop. City traffic technicians implement and maintain these systems so effectively, we rarely consider them. But every time we safely pass through a signal-controlled intersection, it's all thanks to their work. So the next time you're waiting at a red light, remember the delicate coordination of super smart systems that move you through that space safely and efficiently every day.
My parents built their first brand new home in 1987 here in Lee Summit. Pretty amazing to see what Lee Summit looked like in 1987 as a teenager. So vibrant, it was just growing, and there were a multitude of new things coming online. I was in the property management world, going to Rockhurst College, and eventually I raised my kids here. This community holds people. Every time you turn a corner, there's something new. 2013, there was a vacancy on the Planning Commission, and I thought, well, I'm going to give this a shot. When you're on the Planning Commission, the decisions that you're making are recommendations. Are they following our UDO? Does it fit in our comp and strat plan? When it gets to the council, that's the big decision. I served on the Planning Commission up until February of 2025.
All right, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Donald Funk.
Do solemnly swear.
The first few weeks here was an eye-opener. These are big projects. We're making decisions for a lot of people. Is this the right project for our community? Does it fit? Does it serve the needs of our community? We can look back and see what's been done. I mean, it's incredible when you see Paragon Star coming out of the ground, Oldham Village starting to come online, View High Drive Athletic Facility, Discovery Park, streets of West Pryor, 291 North and 50 Highway, our Farmers Market, the Green Street Project. You look at our downtown. My wife and I, we had the opportunity to visit a small town in Florida that was revamping their entire downtown. I met a guy and he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Lee Summit, Missouri." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, they're modeling our downtown off of what you guys have done." We're recognized nationally. I think the easiest way to put it is we're moving in the right direction. A safe, vibrant, happy community. And my hope and my reason for doing this is because I want to keep that hope and dream moving forward.
Can you hear me? I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting, Monday, September 8th, 2025. May I please have roll call?
Chair Pryor.
Here.
Councilmember Rader.
Present.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Present.
Councilmember Hodges.
Here. Thank you. May I please get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Sorry. Thank you. May I please get a roll call?
Yes. Chair Pryor.
Aye.
Councilmember Rader.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comments. The public comment portion of the Public Works Committee meeting is a time where the public may address the committee on any matter listed in the committee agenda for the meeting or directly related to the operations of the City of Lee Summit, except for those matters that are subject of a public hearing requiring that a testimony be sworn. Each person wishing to provide public comment will be afforded 3 minutes to speak. Any person wishing to provide handouts or informational material to the committee shall provide the materials to the clerk or staff, who will then distribute the information to the committee. Do we have any public commenters? Oh, I know we have two. I don't know which one wants to go first, but Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. Carol Lewis.
Okay, can you hear me?
Okay.
You can
drop that down a little bit.
Whichever one you're more comfortable at.
If you need to go there, you can.
I don't know how to do this. That'll be obvious real quick. Good. Okay, I'm Carol Lewis. We live on 208 Northwest Hillcrest Lane here in Lee Summit. You may remember my emails. I think I've sent 2 on our behalf, but I'm just going to go into a little bit of different mode tonight. I looked up today because our main concern is a monopoly. We want choices. We value our freedom to choose many services, where we shop for groceries, what doctors we go to. We just recently changed our trash provider, starting on August 1st. We were a little dissatisfied with the service of the other provider, so we found another one at a slightly reduced cost. So that's our right to choose for our family. So today I looked up online some of the pros and cons of monopolies, because I think that's what you will be doing if you choose one provider for all of Lee Summit, is creating a monopoly. So this is from the Personal Finance Lab website in their article on economics benefits of competition. This is just one brief little comment. Competition is when many providers try to sell similar goods to the same set of consumers. The producers need to compete to try to attract more consumers, usually by lowering prices, offering better versions of the goods or services, or through marketing. Competition generally leads to lower prices, more choices, and better qualities of products for consumers than other types of economies. And certainly here in Lee Summit, we have a wide selection of trash providers. Now, this is from moneydigest.com, these following comments. Even though monopolies typically grow from successful companies that provide a valuable service, once competitors have been squeezed out of the marketplace, the incentive to continue providing exceptional service is reduced. A monopoly is a business that no longer has to compete with others to maintain its position in the market, and this can lead to a shrinking of services that the business doesn't see as profitable. And this comes directly as a result of eliminated competition. The simple reality is that conservatives have little to no choice when it comes to purchasing products or services that they require. And that's what we're talking about, is choice. Alongside concerns over decreasing service availability, Monopolies can also increase prices on a regular basis in ways that would not be possible in a truly free marketplace. Your contract may say that prices can increase over a certain amount of time, but eventually prices will increase. Some prices need to increase to provide services, to pay the employees and such. But at some point, when they know that they are an established monopoly in Lee Summit, they will have the ability to raise prices. They can come to the council and request an increase. So this next statement perfectly encapsulates one power that monopoly businesses enjoy. By trading as the only option in town, monopolies are able to charge whatever they choose. These businesses can artificially inflate the cost of any type of product or service in order to drive profits. As long as consumers have no choice but to use their offerings, the monopoly holds all the power in this consumer relationship. While there are many potentially beneficial qualities that monopoly operations can bring to a community, this is decidedly one of the worst consequences. As with just about all other issues inherent to monopolies, the ability to sell a reduced slate of products also allows a monopoly to peddle inferior output. If there are no other viable businesses in the marketplace that can compete with monopolies' product lines, that business can afford to start cutting corners on quality control and other essential components of the back-end processes. And this does often happen, according to the Bell Journal of Economics. And a business that has no material competition does not have to worry quite as much about the production of its product. If the service of one of the providers wanes over the years, what options do we as Lee Summit consumers have? These are my comments. The council may say that they will find another provider. This will present an obvious problem. Other area providers may have gone out of business. Others are now too small. Others are just financially unable to take on the service of a 100,000 plus community. The bottom line is the average citizen will have little to no say to get better service. A monopoly does not care about the individual consumer, but certainly cares about the city council or the government. I'm not saying this about our city council, but this is what can happen. A major pitfall of any government using a monopoly provider is the potential to leverage political figures for aims that would otherwise go against the best interest of the people. A monopoly can exert immense pressure for a government agency to support the interest of the monopoly and/or the interest of the government officials. A survey by the New York Times shows that 84% of Americans believe that corruption in politics has a pointedly negative impact on not only the government, but on the society as a whole. I am in no way saying that corruption is at play here at all, but I will say that the more monopolies we have, the greater the chances of corruption. And just on a side note, I know there's some concern about road conditions, but as I indicated in my email, we have lived on Hillcrest Lane for 30 plus years. In my 28 years there, we've had multiple providers. There's a lot of different garbage cans on our street. It's a small street. And to my knowledge, we've had no major repairs. We've had some minor, you know, how they spread those lines throughout your street, but no major repairs on our street. So I don't think that holds a lot of water. And as I indicated in my email too, the number of apartments that we have built with all the trucks that those have sent to our communities, that has to be an input in the deterioration of our roads. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, we really need to stick closer to 3 minutes for the public comment, so if you could keep it at 3 minutes, just so we can get through everything on the agenda. Thank you.
hear me? Okay. I have a little cheat sheet, just in case I'd have a tendency sometime to wonder, so I want to stay to point here. My primary concern with the direction the council has indicated could happen is individual citizens' rights to make their own choices in regard to even their trash carrier. Government has its purpose, and its purpose is basically two things. One, to hold a high standard for citizens' response, and the other is to protect the rights of the citizenry. That's their constitutional rights, that's life, liberty, and property. Property includes the right to do your business. And so that's one of the things that I always tried to cover. As some of you know, by the way, you soon forget people, so I know some of you don't know me. But I was, for 34 years, the municipal judge here in Lee Summit. And I always had two goals in my function as judge. Sometimes people would say, what makes a good judge? I said, I don't know. You have to ask somebody else. But I think there are two things that make you a good elected official, and that is an accountability to the people. And so I think it's important that not only do I perform the role of basically helping to impose some kind of a penalty for behavior that's not up to par, but I also have the right to protect the people and their rights from the power of government itself. And that's something that you've got to take very, very seriously in your role as city council people. That's very, very important. In the legal system, we say there has to be proof beyond any reasonable doubt before you can take the rights of people away. And so we would ask you to impose a similar concept in terms of before you take the rights of people to make their own decisions, even in regard to trash. One hauler, or vendor as you might call them, my wife's already talked about the dangers of monopoly, the elimination of competition. It invades the right of a contractor to do their business here in Lee Summit. If you have just one, it's allowed to do so. And one of the big changes or concerns we have is if you have a disqualified or dissatisfied situation and you have one hauler, and again with that monopoly, you don't have much weight. But if you can change providers, then they all have to be competing against each other, and they all have to try to raise a similar standard.
Mr. Lewis, I just wanted to tell you it's been 3 minutes, but if you want to go ahead and finish up your thought, you can.
I'll just make one last comment, and that is, not every household has the same needs. And so I'm concerned that you have a particular service that's authorized at a particular price that really doesn't fit the needs of everybody. For example, I have some oak trees, and they produce a lot of leaves. My carrier last time picked up 30 bags of leaves, for which I was very grateful. Now, that's better than just one, which might be what the law allows. But anyway, we are concerned that you folks exercise your rights to the citizen and protect them in this area and give them the options that they're entitled to under their constitutional rights. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to hear us.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Just those two, or are there any other ones? Just those two? Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is, first item of business. I need approval of the August 11th, 2025 Public Works Committee action letter.
Chair, I move for the approval of the August 11th, 2025 Public Works Committee action letter.
Second.
May I please get a roll call?
Yes, Chair Pryor.
Aye.
Sorry.
5B TMP-3421.
Take that away. Councilmember Rader.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B, TMP-3421, an ordinance approving a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission amendment to State Block Grant Agreement, Amendment Number 2 for Project Number 23-109A-1, by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission for the construction of a GA terminal for the Kansas City Lee Summit Regional Airport between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission in the amount of $4,775,534 and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same. Mr. Anderson?
Good afternoon. Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works Operations, here to talk about the airport. In an exciting time, talking about the construction of a GA terminal building. As you recall, probably a year or so ago, we had a grant agreement for the design of the terminal building. That terminal building was designed. We did go out to bid back in May and open those bids in June. And it's all been on hold while we waited for MoDOT and the FAA to review the bids and to review everything and get the grant agreement written. So we finally got that grant agreement last month, so here we are to talk about it. It's a little bit confusing when we think about typical grant agreements, especially from the FAA. They're normally, it's 95% federal, 5% local, or 90% federal, 10% local. And while this grant is similar, this grant is a 95-5, it doesn't truly paint the entire picture. So this grant is for, as you mentioned, $4,775,534 with a local match of $251,344. But of course, that only builds us about half the terminal if you look at the next agenda item. That only gets us about halfway. So the city is actually on the hook, for $4,737,138, just shy of 50% of the project. And I wanted to point that out just for transparency. This is not the feds going to pay 95% of this building. Where the confusion lies in with this type of building is there are certain spaces that are ineligible for federal funding, and there are certain spaces that are eligible. So this is a 95-5 split of those eligible spaces, which are all the common spaces, the public spaces that the travelers through the airport get to use, but the business end of the airport, of that terminal space, is not eligible. So I just wanted to clear that up and for transparency. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Councilmember Hodges?
So I'm just curious.
Sure.
So out of the 4.7 million, so that's of the city's money. So for the airport, what revenue, or is this paid back once this is fully built? Like, is there a way that the airport pays the city back for those funds once it's up and running and sales and?
So the revenue generated by the airport it pays for all the airport operational fees. The capital costs for the airport are paid by the transportation sales tax. So that is actually part of the transportation sales tax that's in the approved CIP, is where that money is. And that money is not paid back by the airport to the transportation sales tax.
Okay. So the profits that the airport makes, what happens with all of those profits?
So that goes to all the maintenance of the airfield, the maintenance of the grounds, the maintenance of the runways, taxiways, the personnel, the equipment necessary to operate the airport, the fuel pumps and tugs and, all the support equipment for the for the aircraft that use the airport. So all the revenues from really lease, rentals, and fuel sales all go to the operational side of the airport and the operational expenses.
Maybe I can add a little bit. So what Mr. Anderson's referring to are those direct revenues that the airport generates, goes back to the operation and maintenance of the airport itself. But what this investment does is it grows the economic impact of the airport itself. Just like you build a new interchange or you're building other infrastructure, it grows the revenues of the city through business growth, through other sales taxes, jobs, and really growing the entire city. So you got to think of the airport as a piece of infrastructure, much like your highways are infrastructure in the city. So without growing that infrastructure, you don't grow the economy of the city of Lee Summit. So there are other gains. We haven't been able to put a point to that yet. We are having an economic impact study update for the airport being completed. That will hopefully paint a little more clear picture of what those more indirect benefits are of not only the airport, but the investments that you're making in the airport with regard to business growth.
Okay.
Business.
No, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I would be actually excited to see that, 'cause I'm thinking of, if I'm listening to this as a taxpayer, I'm like, okay, I don't use that airport. Like, why would I want taxpayer dollars to go to that? But just to break it down to say, oh, here's what it actually does. I think it would be very helpful.
So, Mr. Anderson, I don't know if you can recall the last time a study was done, what the multiplier of an airport dollar resulted in economic gains for the city, but I believe it was...
It was actually done in 2012 was the last the general aviation economic impact study that was done by the Missouri Department of Transportation. And at that time, if you think of what our airport was in 2012, that was before we extended the runways. At that point in time, the city of Lee Summit, the Lee Summit Municipal Airport, was generating about $9.2 million annually to the to the local economy. MoDOT is talking about doing another economic impact study this year, maybe next year, but we didn't want to wait, so we actually have CMT right now is doing an economic impact study for the airport just to answer this type of question. And one of those things that we really wanted to get to is, what is the overall economic impact of the city? Because you're right, a lot of people don't use the airport and they think, what is the value of the airport to a city? But it is an economic engine to the city. Again, in 2012, it was $9.2 million annually to the local economy, and that might not all be in Lee Summit, but it's Lee Summit, Independence, southern Kansas City, eastern Kansas City. So it's the whole area. And then we also asked CMT to kind of look at that, generally speaking, for every dollar we invest in the airport, what does that bring back to the local economy? So I'm hoping within the next month or so, we'll actually have that report done, and we'll be able to report on that finding.
Okay, no, I look forward to hearing that.
Yeah,
I appreciate
me too,
that info.
actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, may I please get a motion to forward it on to council?
Chair, I make a motion to forward TMP-3421, an ordinance approving Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission amendment to State Block Grant Agreement Amendment Number 2 for project number 23109A-1 by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways Transportation Commission for the construction of a GA terminal for the Kansas City Lee Summit Regional Airport between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission in the amount of $4,775,534, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same on to council.
Second.
Chair, is that a recommendation for approval or
Oh,
just
I thought I
forwarding it
said
on?
moving it forward to approval.
Yeah,
Thank
forward
you.
for approval? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Elam.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Yes. Chair Pryor.
Aye.
Councilmember Rader.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle. Aye. Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda is item C, TMP-3355, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 179-32172 for the LXT General Aviation Terminal Project to Civic Elite Contracting in the amount of $9,512,672.65 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri. Mr. Anderson?
Good afternoon again. Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works Operations. Still talking airport. This is obviously the same project that we were just talking about with the grant. And this is for the construction of the terminal building. The award of that contract is Civic Elite. Again, we had opened those bids back in July, and we had a 120-day bid hold on that. Why? Because we knew we were going to have to go through this process with the FAA and MoDOT to get the grants. So they were the lowest and best bid. It's not a company that we have a lot of experience with, but they have obviously shown that they have the resources and the capacity to build this project. They have other similar projects that they've done. The references are good. Our engineer and MoDOT both recommended award of this contract. So here we are, looking to award the contract and get started. So any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one, Chair.
Councilmember Rader?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so, Mr. Anderson, this is all part of these two go together?
Yes.
The $4 million one and this one?
Uh-huh.
And is this our match to there's no match on this one? This is just money that's coming out
Yes,
of our funds?
So the total cost of this project, the $9,512,672.65, that is the total cost of the terminal building, the site work, and everything. Of that, the FAA is going to fund $4,775,000, and we'll pick up the rest.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear on that. I
Yep,
thought
you
that's
bet.
what it was.
It's really close to a 50-50 split between
Okay.
the FAA and us.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? May I please get a motion to forward on to council for approval?
Chair, I move to full council approval the TMP-3355 An Ordinance awarding the bid of project number 179327172 for the LXT General Aviation Terminal Project to Civic Elite Contracting in the amount of $9,512,672.65 and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same for the city of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Yes, Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
and Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item, item D, TMP-3443, an ordinance amending Chapter 29, Traffic and Motor Vehicles of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri by revising Appendix B, Schedule of Stopping, Standing, and Parking Restrictions for certain streets and segments of the streets located in the City of Lee Summit, Missouri. Ms. Berry?
Susan Berry, City Traffic Engineer, here tonight with a change to the ordinance for no stopping, standing, parking restrictions. This one is for Johnson Street from 2nd to 3rd. The west side will be marked 2-hour parking, similar to the rest of downtown. And the east side is going to be marked no parking. The reason for the east side being no parking is just the narrowness of the street and the inability for, people to drive and pull into driveways and back out of driveways and that kind of thing. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, no questions. May I please get a motion to pass on, to forward to council for approval, please?
Chair.
Councilmember Carlisle?
Thank you. I would move TMP-3443 to the full city council with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Yes, Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
and Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is TMP-3387, an ordinance approving a specialized aviation service organization, SASO, right? Agreement between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri and MJ Aviation Innovations, LLC for a period of 5 years with a continuing option for renewal to perform aircraft, airframe, power plant maintenance, repair and inspection services at the Kansas City Lee Summit Regional Airport, and authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for the same for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri. Mr. Arrington?
Yes, good evening. Joel Arrington, Airport Manager. As you correctly stated, this is a SASO agreement with MJ Aviation. They've been operating on the airport since around 2016, where they've done maintenance work, repair, inspection, and so forth. Their FBO agreement is kind of twofold thing here. It's both up for renewal, and the business is currently being sold. They think that they will close on that deal within the next week to week and a half. one or the other is going to sign this agreement. It'll either be the old one, the old original owner, if it doesn't go through, but from all indications, it looked like this sale is going to go through. And so we figured this is just a good time to use our new updated standardized form where we're moving from what was previously an FBO agreement into what this is, the SASO agreement, which is more appropriate for the type of business that they are. And so this will be a 5-year agreement, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. May I please get a motion to forward to council for approval?
Chair, I move for full approval to council TMP-3387.
Second. Thank you. May I please get a roll call?
Yes, Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
and Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda is TMP-3419, an ordinance approving a congestion mitigation and air quality agreement between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission related to the public improvement project designed as Federal Project Number CMAQ 3358 Chipman Road Signal Controller and Detection with the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and Lee Summit, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri. Mr. Persing?
Good evening, Council. John Persing, Staff Engineer, Public Works. This item's for $200,000 CMAQ funds. This money would be used to upgrade signal controllers and detection along Chipman Road from Pryor to Independence. I believe it's 10 intersections that the city owns. It's a 80-20 split with the state. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Rader?
Are we 20 or 80?
We're 80, or we're 20, they're 80.
We're 20.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I read through this, and I didn't quite understand what air quality agreement, how does that play in? What does that mean?
So the coordinated signals through Chipman, the reduced travel times, and so you have people idling less at the stoplights, that kind of thing. Reduces emissions through the corridor. Yeah, so
Okay,
so it's
all
a
right.
reduction of car emissions.
That makes sense.
Improves the air quality, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I do have one question, and I actually already know the answer to this because Mr. Park already told me, but I think it's important that everyone knows. So the lights that are new, that have just recently been replaced, we're not discarding them. They'll be used.
Correct. The question is, so this is going to replace the detection systems and the controllers along the Chipman corridor. There are some areas or some intersections where we may have more recently replaced the equipment because it's become old, or we had an intersection that was severely damaged, so we got new equipment. We'll take that newer equipment that's still usable, put it in our inventory to reuse in other parts of the city. It's important, though, that along this entire corridor, we have some consistent hardware in place for the operation and management of the entire corridor by the Mid-America Regional Council's Operation Green Light. Because it crosses from Lee Summit through MoDOT back to Lee Summit, it's coordinated by that program.
Thank you. Any other questions? May I please get a motion to forward to council for approval, please?
Chair, I move TMP-3419 for recommendation of approval by full council.
Second. Thank you. May I please get a roll call?
Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
and Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda, G, TMP-3437, an ordinance awarding the bid for project number 893 for the Crack Seal FY26 Program to Sweetens Sealing Services, LLC, in the amount of $262,000, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for the same for the City of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Finch Schmager, Project Manager. This is our annual Crack Seal project. That's where we go through and have streets previously selected that have been treated, or new streets, and just sealing the cracks, trying to keep the water out from reaching the subgrade. This year's project will handle approximately 63 lane miles of roadway, and is funded through the transportation sales tax. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? No? I don't see any questions. May I please get a motion to pass on to council for approval?
Chair, I make a motion to move TMP-3437 forward to council for full approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle. Aye. And Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is item H, 2025-7146, discussion recommendations for stormwater infrastructure levels of service, resources, and dedicated funding. Mr. Binger?
Good evening, George Binger, City Engineer. This should be a fairly brief presentation. This is kind of summarizing the work we've been doing for the last several months, and hopefully we've kind of reached that culmination point where we'll move this forward to council for a full discussion. So you can kind of see here, I'm going to walk through the history, discuss some conclusions, our recommendation. So these are, things summarizing what we've talked about in the past. We talked about, the stormwater discussion has been going on for about, over 30 years at this point. So there's been some significant changes within the city and throughout over that timeline. It's come forward several times and it's never left committee. It's basically, so this is this would be the first time it's actually made it to full council for some sort of recommendation. We talked about the different programs and how it compares to other, highlighting the fact that we really don't have a preventive maintenance program in the stormwater system as we do with our other infrastructure programs. Of course, the workload that we have on our existing system, just the number of work orders and service requests that we deal with. And we discussed major issues. We have flooding, the erosion, the sinkholes is a major issue, especially when we get near people's yards, properties, structures. Corrugated metal pipe, that is a significant problem that we have. Of course, we're trying to replace that and improve the system, but we still have over 110 miles of corrugated metal pipe that is they're just kind of waiting for us. We talked about water quality and streams, the impacts that it has on properties, on infrastructure, and just the overall water quality that we have. So we have talked about typical life in our operations crew of trying, starting on one thing because we have the one crew, then they get pulled off to do something else. So as we work through this whole system, fixing sinkholes, we still have these culverts that need to be cleaned, and you kind of see that, we have sinkholes that, again, are in developed areas, HOA properties, people's backyards, and as we're going through this, so you can see it keeps our crew very busy, and we're not able to keep up in a reactive maintenance. We talked about our desired levels of services. Of course, we talked about what's required, both regulatory, water quality, things we desire from a flood management standpoint. We talked about some of the issues that we want to address to basically move to a more proactive program, more engaged with some of the public and the HOAs. We talked about the different things that we have to do within these stormwater services, like maintain the system, the compliance, the engineering and planning that we have to put into the infrastructure system. And then there's an administrative side of it as well, on related to customer service and some of those other issues. What you see here in gray, we've seen these slides before a couple of times. Gray is what we're already doing. What's black are things that we're proposing to handle with this proposed level of service. Now we talked about, this is where we talked about adding 2 crews to our current staff, adding the public educator, and having that dedicated staff for planning and engineering as well. When flood risk, things that this is again where we talked about some of the master planning things we can do, the preventive maintenance, and working with property owners. Regulatory and water quality, that's one that right now we basically do the bare minimum for permit compliance. So we're talking about here working with the community, engage that public educator. And again, this is kind of, and we're looking for opportunities here where we partner with recreational opportunities, like conversation we have with parks. Trails are great along a stream. If we have some of these large detention basins, they may be dual purposes, practice fields and things, recreational areas. Okay, so we talked about the new resources, the 2 crews, the funding. Some of the contract work, like if we get into extensive pipelining, that's especially, contract work that we work with. Master planning, I think that will really help us looking ahead, evaluating our system and what we need. And that cost is about $6.1 million per year in current dollars. So we talked about revenue sources. We kind of settled on the sales tax. Again, this is very common in the state of Missouri, so that we referred to the authority to approach it from the sales tax. It's very common in the state of Missouri. Again, many cities and communities have adopted this already, both with using that parks and stormwater sales tax. And where we're at now, we're looking at, within the metro area, we're, kind of towards the low end on our sales tax rates at this point. And some of the benefits we talked about with the sales tax is there's a very low overhead rate. So we take that $500,000 in administrative, billing, managing the system, and we can put that into infrastructure. So, and again, that's we talked about some of the features. The billing's very simple, simplified revenues. We don't require an oversight board because generally when you get to like a local utility, you have to have a citizen advisory board. We don't have to deal with policies or exemptions from fees. It's very easy to understand. It's easy to implement. If it's approved by voters, the revenue collection begins very, very soon after. And the cost is very comparable to the median home household. We talked about $105 to $125 per household is generally, and that's in the same range we looked at as a user fee. So that's generally what we'd be looking at. And this is looking at it through a quarter-cent sales tax. So again, we talked about the proposed funding. This is kind of a graphic presentation of the same information. Conclusions. I think as a committee, we talked about there's a need to address stormwater. The flood risk mitigation is very important. The water quality is important. Obviously, complying with our permits is important. Increased levels of services. We want to reduce that response time on our reactive maintenance on fixing sinkholes. We want to increase our proactive maintenance to reduce the frequency of sinkholes and failed infrastructure. Other conclusions, again, we would be looking at adding the maintenance crews and the equipment to go with that, the revenue that's there, and that the preferred option in this iteration is the sales tax, and that we would like to move forward with that. So all that, our conclusion, this is a draft recommendation that we brought forward, and you'll see in this one, I struck out the word April because do we want to go to council, just say we would like to have it put for an election in 2026, knowing we have April, August, and November as our options there. Do we want to have that discussion at the council levels, or as a committee, do we want to recommend going forward in April? And I just want to confirm that, is this basically the recommendation the committee would like to take forward, or are there things that we need to change or adjust with that? And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions or discuss.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Rader?
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Binger, you didn't put the date in there, so are we just sending it on to council to determine the date for the election? Because I don't think April would be a very good time.
If this committee chooses, you can forward to council. We want to have it in 2026. I mean,
Right.
As staff, that's kind of, well, okay, me looking at this for as long as I have, we would like to bring this to some sort of culmination. We would like to get in front of the voters.
Sure.
Because that's the ultimate decision maker when we look at, are we happy with the level of service we have now? Or are people willing to pay more for that enhanced level of service? And I think that's kind of the discussion, at least from my perspective, is we've gotten to this point, but we've never put it in front of the voters, because we're still going to get phone calls on stormwater. And it would be nice to say, well, this is the level of service we have, or, hey, yes, we can do these things for you. So I think our thought process on this would be a council level discussion to pick the time of the year, but we'd really like to see this go forward in 2026. But again, that's up to y'all's purview.
I'm okay with 2026. I didn't know, it's just going to be a big election, and maybe it will be the best time to do it in April. But again, we can discuss that on the council level.
Okay, that was a thought. It's
Yeah.
council. It's a full council decision.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Any additional questions? On Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, if you do have a consensus on this, I would prefer if you could make a motion and recommend to the full council whatever it is that you want to recommend.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Carlisle, would you make a motion, please?
I will, Chair. Thank you. I would move to forward to the full council a recommendation of adding the stormwater language to a ballot in 2026. Good enough? Is that good for you?
That works for
Okay.
me. I mean, is some of the, do we want some of the,
Language in here.
I guess,
I think I'm clear. You guys are looking for this quarter-cent sales tax to move forward to the full council for consideration
discussion.
with this given level of service proposal. I think we understood, and that you'll probably see that by the end of the month at the
At
full
the council
council.
level? Nice.
it'll probably be a very similar presentation. Very
Like
similar.
identical.
We got a head start, yeah. One thing when we get there, though, that I would like for somebody to be aware of is, we understand we have the 3 dates that we could put this on the ballot, but it's always easier for me to make a decision on that if we know what all we're putting on the ballot. Because if we only have April stuff, then, it should go on April, so we're not spending all the extra money to do another ballot for some other time.
That's good.
So-
We can have that information prepared for the for the 23rd.
Okay.
That we have the meeting scheduled to talk about, based on what we're aware of. I know there's a school district Prop C issue, you got the elections, there could be other things, but we'll try to do some research ahead of that to maybe get this done sooner than later. We don't want to keep continuing this to the next meeting,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think it's better to have that information up front, because it costs a lot to put stuff on
Right.
the ballot, and we don't want to just do a one-off. So.
Correct, and we know for sure there will be an election in April, August, and November of next year.
Yes, yes. Okay.
You need a
Do you want me
second.
to redo the motion? You just want
Sure,
me to
and then
read
we'll,
this?
and then we'll do the second, okay.
So I
perfect.
would recommend, as a member of the Lee Summit City Public Works Committee, move to recommend to the full city council that an election be held in 2026 to ask the voters to approve a 1/4 sales tax to fund the necessary resources that generally provide the recommended increases in levels of service in flood risk mitigation, stormwater, quality management, regulatory compliance, capital improvement.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Okay. Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Rader,
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle,
Aye.
and Councilmember Hodges.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item I, 2025-7151, discussion, contracted residential solid waste services, RFP development. Mr. Park?
Yes, thank you. Michael Park, Director of Public Works. Move this over. So we kind of started this conversation with committee last month, and we're going to now start into some more discussion in depth. The City Council really began this initiative towards the end of last year with a strategic retreat, identified solid waste as one of its priority goals. Stormwater was also one. Congrats on kind of making your way through that. And so we'll cover that summary, kind of a little background again, talk about what the Solid Waste Task Force has been doing, and really starting to get to the nuts and bolts of an RFP and some of those key elements that make up an RFP. And at that point, I'm going to transition this over to Mr. Mike Anderson, who's been more engaged with the task force than I have, so he can answer your questions, but I'll be here. So is Mr. Chris Bussin is available too. And so, as I said, we began this with a strategic priority goal, being solid waste. We had a couple of work sessions with the City Council. City Council unanimously supported the engagement plan that we have been walking through for the last several months. City Council then had given a unanimous decision to issue notice that's required by state statute of the intent to change from subscription services to contracted services. We were reviewing best management practices. We're researching other communities that contract, other peer communities. talking to consultants, holding HOA meetings, meeting with industry representatives, the trash haulers, those that are in the business, engaging the public through public meetings and comments. We created a solid waste task force. Actually, just most recently, City Council passed a resolution 9-0 in support of the task force creation and their work contributing towards the delivery of a request for proposals. That task force was created, as you see here, a mix of HOAs, industry expert, and citizens just at large from each council district. And we selected those, and the resolution passed based on their submitted interest cards. And so here we are today, again, talking with the committee about the request for proposals and developing that through a series of work sessions. Our intent is really to deliver, as council directed, a request for proposals to consider by the end of this year. Our hope is that council would be able to make a decision on the request for proposal by the end of the year, advertise that, be able to open those proposals so that council ultimately will have a full information to make a decision whether to contract or not contract. Making that decision really can't happen until you have seen a receipt of proposals, understanding what the cost is, the services are. Nobody knows at this point what those proposals will look like, so you can't be expected to make a decision until you have all that information available. So we have been talking with the consultant. We've been reviewing our past RFP which did not proceed out of the city council for opening. We never saw what the terms of conditions were. We've been talking with peer communities. As you see, most communities in our 8-county metropolitan area already contract. 48% subscribe as the City of Lee Summit does. So we've been reviewing some of those contracts and assessing best practices, reviewing opportunities and concerns as we had previously discussed with council through various work sessions. Working with the public, advertising as best we can to get that feedback from the public through websites, social media, these public meetings. We've been talking about it quite a bit, whether it be staff, whether we're putting it out on the city's various media sources, or the city council has been talking about these engagements and the opportunities that come forward. Providing hauler information, media releases. The haulers have been also reaching out to their customers, making them aware that this initiative is ongoing. I think pretty much everybody's aware of what's happening, so it's no big secret, and it was never intended to be. We're very transparent about this whole process. There was a citywide survey about a year ago where within the citizen survey, and it pertained to all kinds of city services, there was a question related to solid waste, just asking what were the priorities of individual residents when it came to solid waste. And this may have been one of the factors that led to the strategic decision of having this as a priority goal, but by far and away the most important consideration of trash service was cost of service. And then the availability of different services, so think trash, recycling, bulky item, whatever services might be offered, timeliness of service, and then down kind of just below that median was the choice of provider, was kind of that fourth in line, kind of right in there with customer service and impact to my neighborhood as their principal issues or topics of concern or importance for trash services. We did hold 4 public informational meetings. We had one in each council district, though people could attend regardless of their residency. 140 people total attended. We received 91 written comments. I will say some of those written comments might have been from the same individuals over and over. That's not 91 unique comments. And then we also had a public feedback, and I'll get into some of the public feedback. During the same time we were having these open discussions with the public, there was online opportunity for comments as well. We received a total of 413 public comments. Those are including those written from the meetings as well as online submissions. Again, those aren't 413 unique comments. There are, for a fact, many numerous resubmittals of people, some even just word-for-word duplicate comments that had come in. But for full transparency, that's all of them that were received. So could be not 413 individuals, but that many comments. Generally, I don't know that we're surprised other than by some of the total favorable and undecided comments that we got. We anticipated a lot more opposition than we've received thus far. When you do an initiative like this, people who come out, who attend the meetings, are those who are not in support. They're out there as an anti-campaign. That's to be expected. If you're in favor, you're loving that this is happening, you tend to stay home and you watch it proceed through the process. In general, about 64% of the comments were in opposition, 18% in favor, 18% undecided, which means they just want more information. They can't decide until they know what the price is, for example. Of those in favor, they just think that contracting was way overdue. They commented about reduced truck traffic, and what I put that in the category of is really just reducing the impact on the neighborhoods. We saw numerous comments about reducing the volume of trucks in the neighborhoods, whether it has to do with volume and safety or volume and noise. They just don't like the volume of truck traffic in their neighborhood. When they say it was overdue, we got a lot of comments that they were actually just surprised it wasn't already contracted in Lee Summit. It's very common, as I said early on, majority of communities contract, and they moved here from a community that contracted. They just come to Lee Summit. It's an expected government service in one way, whether the government provides the service directly or the government contracts for that service. So a lot of the comments we did get was, I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. I expected it to happen with a community like Lee Summit. Those opposed, for the same kind of comments you heard earlier tonight, they want competition. They believe that this creates a monopoly, and I can address those questions if you have them. I don't believe it creates a monopoly whatsoever, not in the way we're approaching it and recommending as a staff and recommending as a task force. They just, 32% don't believe the city should be contracting. You can kind of group those together. They want the competition. They don't believe the city should be contracting into that category of this is our right to choose. It's just, that is a fundamental belief of people, and we respect that. And that's really the majority, over 70% of the comments we got was, that's their fundamental belief, government, stay out of my business. I don't care what the costs are. Now, we did have about 18% who thought that it would cost more if we contracted. You won't know that until you get through this process. And then 10%, a very small minority, thought that they would see a drop in service. And the way we're designing the RFP is we want to match or better whatever services are available out there for anybody currently, whether they contract through an HOA or contract individually. So we did also have a large engagement with the trash haulers, those in the business. We have 10 trash haulers in service of residential areas. The other 17 are also or just exclusively in commercial, and this initiative has no interest in touching commercial services. So all those trash haulers that do commercial business still have every opportunity to continue doing commercial trash service. There was only one of the residential haulers who only did residential, and I think they have an extremely small market share of service in Lee Summit. I'm not even sure how many households total. It was such a minute number. But those other 9 out of the 10 that do residential service also do commercial services. We're not proposing to take away their commercial business at all. So we sent them the statutory 2-year notice to all haulers, whether they did commercial, residential, both, didn't matter. We sent it to everybody. We also sent them all informational letters, trying to get their attention and get their feedback. We asked for them to fill out a survey. They could do it online. They could do it writing. They contacted. We've been having a lot of meetings with the haulers. I just say over 3/4 of the haulers for sure have so far been proponents of contracting, as opposed to contracting. The hauler meetings, we've had 8 engagements, over 270 comments received back from those hauler meetings, engagements, and summaries. Generally, the kind of feedback we're looking for are that kind of feedback that will contribute to delivering a good RFP. They're preferring a 5-year contract. That's just generally, most of them are saying 5 years, definitely nothing less than 5 years. We can talk about whether it's 5, 7, 10 with those haulers as we continue to talk with the City Council about the various terms of an RFP. 57% of the trash haulers say they already offer some sort of senior discount. That's good to know, because as we hear, one of the comments we've got from the public is they like having a senior discount. 100% of the haulers said they do 95-gallon trash containers. 57% they do a little bit of 95-gallon, 65-gallon for recycling. None of them really want 35-gallon containers. 4 specifically said no, they just can't do it. The issue with your 35-gallon containers is they just fall into the back of the trash dumpster. They aren't designed to work with the service that's being delivered today by all of your trash haulers. 100% do collect recycling, yard waste, and bulky items, and none of them are in favor of what we call tags, for trash or stickers for extra trash. And they just don't like the business. It's either in the container or you get a larger container or you get more containers for it, nothing outside the container, which is actually one of our ordinances. It's been an ordinance for a long time. We don't allow bags in the city of Lee Summit. So now we also talked to the HOAs. We sent out to 146 HOAs letters providing them information and seeking their engagement through surveys, both online and through the letters that we sent them. We got 110 responses. That's a pretty positive response rate for 146 HOAs we contacted. We've been having continual and regular meetings with about a dozen of those HOAs who seem to be very engaged. Some of these HOAs don't contract, some of them do. I'll say probably one of our two largest that don't, Lakewood and Raintree, they're very much in favor of contracting. HOA feedback so far is really kind of that split where you see some HOAs who would like to continue contracting. About 8,300 homes are represented in those HOAs. About 11,000 homes are not under contract, or they're in a contract but interested in the city's contract, so they would want to opt in. And then roughly 1,600 homes are in a HOA contract that they would definitely have an interest in moving to a city's contract. And so what we're proposing here in our RFP, and part of this will be the discussion that Mr. Anderson continues with you, is that we're proposing that contracts with HOAs be allowed to continue. That, it serves the intent of what we're trying to achieve here, in that we're consolidating trash services for areas, reducing the volume of trash trucks in neighborhoods. If an HOA is already contracting, they're really achieving that goal for us on our behalf. And so we would allow them to opt out of the city's contract in that regard. They can continue with their term if they wanted. They could rebid it at the end of their term if they wanted. What we wouldn't allow them to do is to opt into the city, then go back to contracting themselves. So once you're in, you're in. But as long as you're not and you're contracting, you can change providers. Maybe this provides an opportunity for competition. We have about a third of our community that is served by HOA contracts. So that's a third of your residential haulers who can continue to contract with residents in our community and compete for their business. So no way are we trying to make this a monopoly. We're not saying 100% of residents in the city would go to the city's contract. That's not being proposed. Of all those HOAs that currently contract, the average monthly bill for services is right around $19 a month. And that's for trash and recycling, and typically yard waste and bulky item all combined for $19 a month. We have a fairly good idea, kind of the range to expect in a request for proposal and submittals on monthly costs. Obviously, we're going to have to see what the terms of the RFP are, but we understand what that range is based on these HOA agreements. They're serving larger areas as well as other cities that contract. And I believe almost all of those are under $25 a month for all of these services combined. And in talking with other residents who don't have the benefit of a contracted service shared with other neighbors, their costs range anywhere from $25 to $65, maybe even higher per month for what is often less service than these HOAs are currently getting. So cost is a big driver to why I believe the City Council made this a priority goal. The contract length is typically 1 to 5 years with these HOAs and the haulers. 42 of the HOAs provide recycling, 8 do not. So you can see how prevalent recycling is included. Same thing with yard waste. So 36 of the HOAs do, 6 do not. It's basically telling you the service we want to provide if we're going to contract service. It needs to include recycling. It needs to include yard waste. Bulky items, a little questionable. I think that's where you rely on the task force and some of the feedback on whether or not that's a basic service or not. But a lot of HOAs include that too. Monthly bulky item pickups included in your bill. 24 said they would not use the city's contract. 22 said they would, and 11 might. Those are the HOA's feedback that we got. Some additional feedback HOAs are saying, this is just from the pure number, they're saying we should include yard waste, we should include recycling, we should include bulky item. We're just getting that engagement. They're helping to inform the decisions you'll make on what to include as a base service in an RFP. Not surprisingly, they're saying you don't include glass. That's not a service you want to provide that people pay for. They can go find a Ripple glass and go somewhere else. I think reduced costs, it's probably referring to like a senior discount, whether or not you include it or not. You guys will probably have a good discussion on what type of optional services are available. So HOAs that contract about 10,000 homes, I think we have roughly 35 to 38,000 total households in the city of Lee Summit. So again, like I was saying, about a third are within an HOA that contracts. The map down there is just kind of showing you illustratively and geographically where those HOAs contract are. They're in blue. It's an outdated map. I know we have some HOAs that are over on the east side of town that also contract now. I think there's a few more on the north side of town that contract. And there's obviously some subdivisions in this map that have been built today that don't even show up. And we'll go through the process of updating that map for the RFP. That was a map taken from the last time we issued this. Solid Waste Task Force composition that you all approved previously has a couple of large HOAs, a couple of smaller HOAs, some that contract that some don't. We also have some citizens, like I said, 2 from each district. Some of those citizens actually have different hats where they're engaged as an HOA property management company that bring great perspective to the committee's work. We intentionally have people on there who were not in favor of contracting to get a very diverse perspective as they try to form the RFP. And it's important that, they work together without influence of haulers. Haulers don't need to be a part of developing the RFP because they're going to be competing and making submissions on the RFP. So that's why it's just residents and one individual who really knows the industry from the Solid Waste District of Mid-America Regional Council. So now we're getting into the key RFP considerations. This is where I'd ask Mr. Anderson to come forward, who's got a lot more knowledge. But before I hand that off, are there any questions that you might have of me?
Councilmember Rader?
Thanks, Chair. Mr. Park, did we ever get, and because this has been going on for a little while, did we ever get statistics on, you said at one time that we would save $1 million a year on our road repair. Did we ever get the numbers on that or the statistics as far as where we were going to get that information showing that it was going to save us that kind of money?
Yeah, Mr. Binger provided that estimate previously. I believe he still stands by that estimate on reduced pavement wear and damage. It's just a matter of fact on how much vehicles weigh and pavement design and how much the equivalency is of a truck compared to a single occupant vehicle. Trucks produce tremendous amount of damage compared to vehicles, your passenger vehicles that you drive to and from work, home, school, wherever you're going. It's just not a debate about the weight of the vehicle and the pavement design and the damage it accelerates to our roads. I think what Mr. Binger did is he extrapolated that damage over time and how many more trips we could extend for a passenger car versus that trash truck, and reducing the amount of pavement damages that go into our pavement programs. That would be your slurry seal, your crack seal, your overlay programs in that regard. And yes, there are other trucks. There's a lot of delivery trucks. There's buses. There's everything else that contribute to the pavement conditions and their deterioration. But anytime you can remove some of that, it's going to be a positive outcome.
Where can I get a hold of that?
So Mr. Binger's here. Or did he leave? He was here. He left. We can get that additional information for you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then when you said there were, I was just thinking, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm sure that all of you have probably been getting letters and emails from people, our constituents. And so this is just a side note. There were 400, you said there were 413 public comments written and online. But that really didn't include any of I don't know if they were doubling up, if they were writing the council members and then they were also submitting online. So there might be that number might vary a little bit. I've been getting a lot of comments, so.
Yeah, it didn't include all of the comments that might have been posted on like Nextdoor or on a community Facebook page. Those were not official comments, and I'll say there was a lot of actually positive comments on those pages as well. We didn't count it either. We didn't count the positive, neutral, negative of those other sources that are out there swirling around. It's kind of an echo chamber of people repeating themselves. We didn't count any of that. I'll say we probably got less than a half dozen comments relayed to us from council members. So if you've been receiving a lot, you haven't been forwarding them to staff to account for. We did account for those that were received within the time period that we were selecting or that we were receiving all the public engagements. We rolled those comments in, considering that those were more formal. They came through either the council, they came through the surveys online, or they came through the surveys that were done in the informational meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any additional questions right now? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Anderson, Deputy Director of Public Works Operations. So the task force was formed, and we've had so far 2 meetings to kind of work through these key considerations of things to include in the RFP. We do have another meeting scheduled this week that we're hoping we can get through the last couple issues and maybe kind of recap the whole thing. So I'd kind of like to go through point by point, bullet by bullet, kind of the consensus of the task force. And I would like to get your input along the way. Is this something you agree with, something you strongly disagree with, or are there comments you want us to take back to the task force to discuss? So with that being said, we started out with that overall concept. Again, who do we include in the RFP? Is it everybody? But what we were looking at is where we landed was anybody with a polycart. So someone that's rolling a polycart to the curb, that's who we're going to serve. So that's going to be residents, your typical residential homes. Single family, duplex probably are using polycarts. Triplex may or may not. It gets to a point where they build a trash enclosure and they use a roll-off dumpster, like a 2-yard dumpster. That would be considered commercial. So we're not necessarily going to split it at all duplexes and nothing above. Just anybody that's using a polycart that's rolled to the curb would be serviced by the residential curbside service. Anybody else would still be commercial, and this contract or this RFP does not include commercial hauling. So that was the recommendation of the task force. That seem reasonable? Okay, no comment on that. So Michael mentioned there's a lot of HOAs that currently contract. We did talk to the task force about that. Is that, it was our recommendation that an HOA in a contract would be able to maintain that contract, that they could do that. That was a no-brainer for the task force. They agreed with that 100%. They did not want, they can certainly renew, they can switch their hauler, as long as there's no break in that service. So they're not going to end their contract, jump to the city contract, and then jump back to another contract. So as long as it's a continuous, uninterrupted contracted service, we would let the HOAs maintain that. One thing that I don't see on here was, at what point do we say an HOA can enter into a contract? So some may not be in a contract today while we're talking about this. And the general kind of consensus was, once we go out for an RFP and we give the vendors or the haulers an idea of how many homes are you going to be picking up, at that point in time, we wouldn't want a big HOA to suddenly contract and pull a couple hundred homes out of that number, because we want to make sure that the haulers have good information to put their pricing together on. So that was the consensus of the task force, that maintain contracts as long as it's uninterrupted contract, and probably put a deadline on, hey, if you're not in contract by the time we go out to RFP, we'd like for you not to do that. I'm not sure legally how we do that. That's a conversation we'll probably have to have with Scott and what we can do there. Excuse me. And as long as I don't hear any comment, I'm just going to assume we're all good, and I'll keep going. As far as the term, We talked about a 5, 7, and 10-year term. I think everybody agreed 5-year term was good. There has to be enough of a term, as we're going to talk about later, the roll-off containers. We are going to get all new roll-off containers that the contractor is going to have to provide that will become property of the city when it's all said and done. So if we have to switch contractors down the road, we're not reinvesting in all new containers. So there has to be some way, some timeline that they can spread out that capital investment. So we thought the 5-year term made a lot of sense there. Agreed on 2-year renewals with a 3 renewal maximum. Was the recommendation of the task force.
I need to turn on. So if we are in a 5-year contract, and I get why they want the 5-year, I get that.
Sure.
But if we are in a 5-year contract with someone and they're not performing, are we going to have contracts stating that there's, there's accountability with?
Yeah, as we get through here, we're going to talk about some performance measures.
Okay.
I can't say the details of those but there will absolutely be performance metrics. There'll be requirements, customer service requirements, and they'll be expected to meet that. One of the things we want out of this is better customer service. Even though we're not involved in the contracting of trash service now, we still get a lot of complaints that are directed to us because of the poor customer service that people are getting. And so one of the things we want to and spell out in the contract is some of those customer service performance metrics.
And so are you saying that the task forces, they've already started meeting or?
Yes, we've had 2 meetings working through these, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I have a quick question regarding
Yeah, go ahead.
contracts. So during a contract, does that would the trash hauler be allowed to rate increase during that contract, or does the contract keep the rate at the same level the entire duration?
Again.
Yeah, Chairman Pryor, that's the purpose of the contract terms. Typically in our contracts, we will set an allowable increase with a cap on it per year. Sometimes contractors exercise that. Sometimes they exercise it up to the cap. Sometimes they don't at all, and you hold the same price. But contractually, they would be limited in how much they could. And that's when you get to, at the end of the term, you have a renewal. And then that renewal, you can also put terms on that. Maybe it's a stepped cap for another renewal, or you can decide, they could decide to walk away. You could walk away at that renewal period, but you could administratively also approve it if that's the case, or take it to council for approval. However you want to write the terms and conditions of the RFP and the contract, you can, to hold them to a certain amount. But it's those renewal periods that then they get a little more certainty when they bid this, to say, oh, I could have this for 5 years plus 2, plus how many renewals at 2 years. If I perform well and my prices are in line, that gives them the guarantee of a certain total term of contract that they're looking for when they submit their proposals. So that's why it's really important for us to nail down what is the initial term, then what are the renewals, and how many renewals will they have an opportunity for? Because if they're performing well, that they're expecting to live out the full term and all the renewals of that contract before it goes back out.
Okay, thank you. And then if someone's watching this and they see something like, oh, you know what, this sounds like a good idea that I'd want to see in the contract, is there anywhere that they would it be best just to send council an email and we forward it to you guys? Or what's the best way that they can have input kind of on what they...
So they could send it to you, or they could send it to Public Works, and we'll receive that, and we'll carry that conversation with the council then.
Public Works, what's the email for Public Works?
It's public.works@cityofls.net, I believe. That's right. Or just Public Works, no dot, sorry. Public Works
Right.
Okay,
at cityofls.net.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And typically in these contracts, like Michael mentioned, we do usually allow annually that they would be able to potentially based on CPI. And actually one of the things that the committee did discuss is an annual increase CPI with a 3% max. So they could not just, hey, we're here, I'm going to double my price. They can't do that. Okay, let me advance the slide here. Oops. It's probably an easier way to do that. So at this point, then we talked about, what services to include in the basic service. And it was, Michael mentioned it, we want to be able to put together a contract and provide services to the citizens that really are equal to or better than what they would expect in their HOA contract. And what we're seeing is all of these basic services are included. Waste, the household waste, the recycle, yard waste, and bulky item pickup. The committee definitely agreed that solid waste, yard waste, recycle, to be included in the base, as well as bulky item pickup. And I'll probably address it in several other locations, but that bulky item pickup being quarterly. As far as optional, there really wasn't much appetite to try to accommodate, the extra bags or selling stickers for bags. It was let's not go down the path of bags or tags and keep it with you got a 95-gallon container. Get it in there. Honestly, there was a lot of talk about, and we probably all do it. I know I have a party at the house and I got an extra bag of trash, hey, Eric, you got room in your container? My neighbor, and I'll throw an extra bag in his. Or I've had to at times put him in my garage and throw him out the next week. And the consensus of the task force was, so let's just stick with the containers we have and not try to write a contract to address the kind of one-offs. Again, yard waste included in the basic service, bulky item in the basic service on a quarterly basis. Everybody did like the Christmas tree disposal. That is something that most HOAs are allowing and have part of their contract, and it was overwhelming that, yeah, we want to be able to put our Christmas tree out and have that picked up. The container change with no fee, kind of that amnesty period. The discussion was that the basic program is going to be a 95-gallon trash and a 95-gallon recycle. And that would be the base that was delivered to people. If people wanted to change that within the first 6 months, they can do that and downsize one of their 65s or 95s to a 65 at no charge, bless you. But they also said they didn't feel like there necessarily should be a cost reduction associated with that. The bulk of the cost is you're driving out to the truck, you're driving to the house, you're picking it up and you're dumping it in. And that happens whether or not it's a 95 or 65. On the snowbird service, this is, if you have somebody that's going out of town or going down to Florida in the winter for three months, that they would be able to discontinue their service. That did seem something that most HOAs do, and the task force recommended that anytime if somebody was gone for a minimum of 3 consecutive months, would be able to kind of opt out of that trash service for those 3 months and not have to pay. The at-your-door service or concierge service, some of the haulers refer to this as like a hardship. If somebody was not physically capable of getting their container to the curb, logistically and the implementation of that gets very complicated. What qualifies, who verifies. The sense of the task force was, let's not make that a part of our requirements, but that's something that the haulers could do on their own. And in our surveys from the haulers, that's one of the responses, a lot of the responses we have. We don't have an official concierge service or at-the-door service, but we handle that on a one-on-one basis with our customers.
My mother-in-law actually utilizes that, your door service through Constable, because she can't make it to the end of her driveway.
Right.
So I do think that's important to keep in there.
And I think that's one of those things we would encourage it, but if we require it, now it becomes, okay, what qualifies? Who does that verification? How do we, it gets very.
Somehow trash companies are doing it now.
Trash
'cause
companies do it now, though. I mean, they'll call like did you say mother-in-law? I'm sorry.
She's used it, she's had it with every trash service that she's had, so
can
they're
call-
doing it.
And they are. And our response that we got from the survey from the haulers was, as people call in and say, hey, can you provide this service? They just work that out and do it.
So she's typically just had to pay a few extra dollars
Okay.
a month for
Yeah,
that service.
a lot of them are saying they don't really even charge extra fee for it, so.
So Mike, can we go back really quick to
Oh, sure.
the yard waste? I'm sorry. In the basic bundle, how many bags of yard waste? Have you determined that?
Yeah, we did talk about that. That was kind of all over the board. I mean, I think we saw that people saw the, the appeal of saying, oh, gee, unlimited. But then we also, and I will say, I'll give a lot of credit to the task force. I mean, super engaged, a lot of great discussion. But the one thing I really noticed on the task force is they are very, very mindful of the cost. They're very mindful of the things that we add in this contract. They're going to elevate the cost. And they're mindful of the fact that our citizen survey, their number one thing identified was cost. So they kind of settled on, hey, maybe a 15 bag, but I think we should check with the haulers to see kind of where they're at. In the pretty overwhelming consensus of the haulers is a 10 bag limit. To limit it to 10, just because even at that 10 right now, according to the haulers, it's a huge effort just to get that and, within daylight to pick up the 10 bag limit today.
And if we go back to Councilmember Pryor's comment about out your door, I just wanted to understand that a little bit better. So are you saying that if someone needs an at your door service, they would contact directly with the hauler?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, what we're going to see, and we'll see that as we work through this list, customer service will be directly billing, and customer service will be directly with the hauler. That's not going to be through the city as a pass-through. So we want to encourage that direct communication with the hauler, whoever that is.
And just to be clear on, and this is kind of off but did we say we were going to have one hauler, or will there be more than one, or is that something that we're working with on the task force as well?
Right now, we're looking at one. It didn't make a lot of sense to break up the city into districts and have multiple haulers.
Okay. Thank you.
And the last bullet point was, I know something the mayor was interested in, is that hauler providing emergency support services in case of an ice storm, and we have a lot of tree limbs, or we have another microburst, and to help in an emergency response, pick up trash and haul that. Again, it was one of those things that the task force felt like maybe we could ask, but not necessarily make it a contract requirement that they do that. Oops. Okay, we did talk about containers a little bit. Definitely wanted to go with new containers. We have a lot of old containers out there of various size, shapes, and obviously if it costs as a driver, we want to, standardize that container so that through automation, make that much more efficient. A lot of the things that we'll probably reach out to you guys, what's the color of that container? Do we want to brand that with the Lee Summit logo? Things like that we can do. But the task force overwhelmingly new containers. As far as the optional sizes, we did focus on hone in on those 2, 65 and 95. Definitely no 35s. Michael mentioned it in the survey. We had 4 haulers that they don't even want to talk about 65 or 35s. One of the HOA representatives who actually writes their HOA contract said they received bids and 4 out of 5 refused to bid a price on a 35. They're just not interested in them. Again, would be allow that mixture. Yes, we'd start out with the 95, but give people that 6 months to try it out and say, I don't really need a 95. I'll go with a 65. As far as the number of containers, this is something we talked a little bit about and landed on no maximum number of containers. There's not been any kind of problem with people, a commercial business or something saying, hey, I want 10 containers out here. Obviously, if it gets out of hand, we're going to look into what's going on. This is, again, we're picking up residential trash, not commercial. So if someone's trying to run a commercial business out of their home and, they've got an overabundance of containers, we'd look in that. But that's definitely the exception. It's not something that's been a problem historically. So we did not want to necessarily limit the number of containers. The task force kind of skipped over the color. I think, from a staff perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a uniform base color and just different color on the lids. That way, just uniformity, and when you're producing the containers, all the bases are the same, and we'll have a different color for the lids. So you guys can think about what maybe colors we want. I kind of like just your basic black and different color for recycle and trash. But that's me. Again, I kind of alluded to contractor. So the contractor, the hauler, would provide the initial distribution of the new containers, but they would be city-owned at the end of the contract. One of the things you don't see on your list, but we're talking about as staff, is all the existing poly carts that are out there. We're not holding out a lot of hope that the current haulers are going to come pick them up. They just don't want them. So we're going to be looking at exploring options, and is there a company out there that has an interest in collecting those and recycling them, potentially working with our partner out at the Resource Recovery Park, grinding them out there and recycling them. It's just, we need to look at what we do with the existing poly carts.
Councilmember Hodges has a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So you said that the city will own the trash cans. So who, is the city the ones that initially purchase the trash cans for the citizens, or the citizens will be buying them, but they will be city property? So how does that work?
The contractor will be, the hauler, whoever we select, will be purchasing all the poly carts, and then that'll be, the price of those will be included essentially in the monthly cost.
Okay.
And that's why, again, that 5-year minimum, so they can spread that cost out.
So I guess why, not that we necessarily, not that everybody wants their trash can, but if they're the ones paying for it, then how is it that the city's owning it?
The poly cart's going to be essentially assigned to an address. And it's going to be, so if somebody moves, they don't have to take their cart. Somebody else doesn't have to buy a new one and bring it. It's just part of that service that you're paying for. Just like now, I mean, in a private contract, your monthly cost is paying for the cost of that container, but the hauler still owns it. We thought it was important for the city to maintain ownership at the end, so that if we do change vendors, we're not having to put that cost on the citizens yet again.
Okay, so it's basically each household is renting that can then?
Essentially,
It's kind of like
as
how
part
it's
of
going
their,
now.
a part of their monthly fee, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hodges, I think another important consideration in the city owning it is if there is an issue with the contract, for whatever reason they don't perform, and we need a different contractor, you already have all of those assets still owned by the city at every household. It's also probably incentive for the contractor to perform. I mean, they've got a lot of capital invested in all of those bins, the containers that are out there that they no longer own, but they need to extend their contract to recover their cost over that 5-year period or 7-year period or however long they've expected to recover that cost.
Well, I guess my question is, if the city isn't putting in any of the money, how is it that they're the ones, how are we the ones owning it? Because if they're not the ones paying any part of that monthly fee, I guess I'm just confused on that part.
Yeah, just like you contract with your trash hauler right now, they bring out 2 bins, right? They're not yours, they're still owned by the contractor.
But they initially bought them, but the city has no stake in it technically, right? So it's
Yeah,
not
so
the
when
same.
they leave, they could either just leave them there, which we anticipate a lot of that will happen, or they come out and they pick them up and they take them with them because, well, they want them for whatever reason. In this case, they're going to spread that cost out. The carts don't cost very much, but they'll spread that cost out for the entire term of their contract. So if you're able to get, we'll just hypothetically say $25 a month for your basic service, that $25 includes their cost recovery over the 5-year period for their carts. It includes replacing the carts when they get damaged. It includes all of that. The maintenance of them will still be the contractor's responsibility as well, and all the service, all in one price. You're getting that economy of scale.
Okay, so if we're renting it and it doesn't go down when you necessarily pay it off, I guess you could say, if it needs replaced, is that a free replacement?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, they would be required to provide the cart regardless of its, how long it's been at that property owner or whatever. If it gets damaged, they got to replace it. And then as soon as they replace it, it's the city's ownership again. That way we don't have this issue of it moving with a contract around, and we can then brand it however we need to brand it, put whatever information you want on it. I think it provides that uniformity too, in case we do change contractors. Maybe the first term is fine and we decide we don't want to renew, or maybe they don't want to renew and we go out to bid again. That second contract that comes in isn't going to have all that capital outlay. They'll already have bins already throughout the city.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one more comment.
Go ahead.
About the logo. So this is just from a marketing perspective. But if you have Lee Summit on all your trash cans, everyone's going to think Lee Summit is the trash contractor.
It's interesting you
So-
mentioned that, because that was actually a very,
Yeah, it may
that
not,
was-
it may not be the best best idea to do that.
Yeah.
Because I know you said earlier that you get calls anyway from people.
right.
And then you're really going to get a lot of calls, because a lot of people won't know. And they'll
Yeah.
just be calling the city of Lee Summit.
Yeah, no,
Like crazy.
It's a good comment. We had that very same comment within the task force, and it went kind of back and forth, and that's why I was like, we're just going to let the council talk about this one. Because we had some people that made that very same comment. If you put LS on it, you're going to think it's LS picking it up.
Yep.
And that's the one you're going to be calling. And then we had another person on the task force say, but the city is managing this contract, and you should own it, and you should be proud, put your name on it. So it's all over the board on that one.
Yeah, you might not want to be the person that takes all those calls.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with Chris. He doesn't want to be that guy.
Okay, thanks.
So, no problem.
Thanks, Chair.
No, it's a good comment. I appreciate it. So we jump to yard waste. You can kind of start to see some of this starts to get a little bit repetitive. So yes, we wanted to include yard waste as part of the bundled service. Bags and bundles only, and bundles being, the 4-foot, no longer than 4-foot sticks tied together with twine. So no containers, no poly carts for yard waste, just the bags and bundles. Again, when we talked about the limits, the limit was kind of, again, all over the board, but their thought was, no more than 15, but let's talk to the haulers. I think after our conversation with the haulers and what they're looking at, we would probably, from a cost perspective and trying to balance that out a little bit, probably limit that to 10. And nobody really had an appetite for selling the stickers to try to, have extra bags. Again, maybe I shouldn't say it publicly, but hey, if I got 12 and my neighbor doesn't have any, hey, Eric, you mind if I throw a couple bags of yard waste on your driveway? And not a problem. Definitely, that was a service that people wanted year-round, not seasonal, and also weekly. Bulky items, again, yes, everybody thought that bulky items should be a part of that base service on a quarterly. And of course, bulky items does not include appliances, things like that. Just things that two people can fit in the back of one of the trucks, but no appliances or electronics. Emergency response support, again, this was something that they thought, something we could maybe ask during the RFQ process, just to kind of get a feel for if they could help us, but not necessarily make it a requirement. Customer service, that would be the contractor's responsibility with city oversight. What we would picture there is your first point of contact as a citizen would be the hauler, to let them know if there was a missed pickup or if something else is going on. Next step, if you're not getting adequate service, would be to reach out to the city. We would probably have, and I would envision a number 4 solid waste services, probably an automated, FAQs, have you talked to the vendor, how long has it been? And if we can't address the issues, through FAQs, then get that to a person. Fines and penalties, we didn't get into this a lot. Certainly the overall concept was, hey, if for some reason my address is not getting the service, then any kind of discount or anything should go to that property owner and that address. And absolutely, I don't want liquidated damages coming back to the city. That should be, if a resident is having issues, that resident should get any kind of discounts that would be associated with that. From a customer service standpoint, some of the conversations we had in the task force was, that initial response, hey, I reach out to you, what's a reasonable expectation to get a call back, at least in that initial call back. And that conversation ranged anywhere from 4 hours to 24 hours. I mean, I kind of think if we look at our own customer service within Public Works, if we get a call in, our goal is to get an initial response within 24 hours to that person. Might not be a resolution, but at least hey, we got it, this is what we're doing. And then resolution, between 24 and 36 hours, if it's a missed pickup. Breach of contract, that's going to obviously be a big issue. I think that's really going to be handled with counsel, with legal, not necessarily a task force. Obviously, we will have an option to terminate a contract. If the performance is not there, we can terminate that contract. We'll have performance bonds in there that if a contractor is not performing, we can call the bond company to hire another contractor to get the job done. What triggers that? It's, would have to be pretty egregious, I would think, before we're talking about terminating contracts. But that's something that we'll have to look at in more detail. Customer billing, we're looking at the contractor will bill directly and collect directly from the citizens. We're not going to do that. And then we did talk about a senior discount. That was a service that a lot of haulers do offer. It kind of gets back to that at your door service. How do we, who verifies, who does this? And one of the things we talked about as staff is, Jackson County has the property tax freeze that, if you're over 62 and you document this is your primary residence, you document your age, that your property tax is frozen. They limit that to, one house. Grandma or grandpa can't do multiple homes for their family. It's your primary residence, and we thought, well, maybe that would be a good way that information is already there. Maybe if the county was willing to share, here's a list of addresses that have the property tax freeze, that perhaps those addresses could get a discount. And the task force seemed to like that. So. Some of this, that's as far as we got, and that's not bad because that last bullet is the last things to talk about. So at our next meeting, we're going to kind of talk about what we see as the selection criteria. Is it cost? Is it performance? Is it resources? Is it customer service? we're certainly in the RFP, we're going to ask, how are you going to be set up to manage customer service? How are you going to meet these expectations? What resources do you have to pick up the trash? So we'll let you know how that conversation goes, and then we'll recap this with the task force. But that's a summary of the task force conversation. So, any other comments? Questions?
Mr. Park, did you have something to add?
No, I just
Just here to answer
ready to
questions?
answer questions, and then I'll wrap up with kind of where we are in the process and next steps. But before we move on to that, yeah, if there's any questions or concerns that you have that we need to address, I think there's been some good feedback. As you can see, there's still a lot of things, even that we ran through, that the task force has had a lot of engagement with, still undecided, particularly around the container, colors and sizes and those kind of things are still undecided, very much so. The terms and, the renewals and how many renewals, still undecided. You don't know what that is yet. But yet I think we have come to resolve a lot of what those key elements of a proposal should include, as bundled service, as kind of the default, bin size and those kind of things that the engagement process has really helped form that we can bring forward to the committee. And before I take the next steps conversation here, what other comments or concerns or feedback would you like to share with us?
Sure.
Councilmember Carlisle?
Thank you. So from all of that we just discussed today, I would say that there are three things that really stuck out for me that I have a large opinion on. First, the first one that I didn't like was where you said we're going to go with one hauler. So, and it doesn't make sense to break up the city into districts and blah, 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 whatever. But the problem that we have been having with trash, at least that we as city council members get complaint on, is it's getting missed, it's not getting picked up, it's not getting picked up on time. So I don't know how you think that one provider who it can't even service the community right now, like people are already complaining, and they're not only complaining about one hauler, they're complaining about all of the haulers. So how is one hauler going to be able to pick up the entire community of Lee Summit and service them properly?
Okay.
If not doing it now, just in smaller bundles, they can't, right?
Right. So we did look at this, and this was part of our conversation with those, best practices, industry experts, and other peer communities that do this. And we have to start from a place that a third of our community is already contracting, and we're not proposing to change that.
Right.
So we're not talking about the entire community going to one hauler. A third of our community could have 9 different haulers. We don't know. We do know who they're contracting with, but we're not proposing that they have to change or that they have to keep the current contract they have. They can rebid that and they can continue contracting. Right. So we're working with a smaller group, not just the whole city, but say 2/3 of the city. A lot of your missed pickups are because of the inconsistency within a neighborhood that you have. You may have 9 or 10 haulers in a neighborhood and they don't know where they pick up. We don't usually hear from people who've had missed pickups within neighborhoods that contract. Everybody in the neighborhood.
Contract, the HOA hears that complaint, we don't, right? But then we hear the HOA complaints.
Even from the HOAs, there's not a lot of those complaints. I don't know where you guys live. I don't know where you live. But I'll give them my example. I live in an HOA that contracts. 20 years, they've missed it one time, and it was resolved within 48 hours. They just don't miss individual households. They'll miss streets, on occasion. They may have reasons, equipment breakdown, other things, that they're missing larger portions of the subdivisions. But it's not like they go around the streets and they say, I'm not picking yours up. If they missed mine, it's because I didn't have it on the curb.
Right.
That's one of the benefits of when you're contracting is they have the expectation that every cart they have within the neighborhood, within that portion of the city, that is theirs to pick up. There's no question about it. It's on the curb, it's picked up. The other is we're not saying that haulers can't join together and submit a bid. They can do that. They could sub to others. They can work in partnership. It's why we're seeing an overwhelming majority of contractors that are pro-contract. They're in favor of us proceeding with this. And I would say all of them have the capacity to handle the entire city if they got the whole city. I know you say not, but even those, and I know there's a very popular local contractor here, they're very much in favor of this because it's also a business growth opportunity. You get a contract that's guaranteed 5 years with the potential, if you perform well, up to 10 years plus, they will take that opportunity to grow. It's why they're all very much interested in this.
And I understand that point
Yeah.
perfectly. What I'm saying is I would hate to do all of this work and to pick a hauler and have them come out here and fall flat on their face, and then everybody is just so angry. So to have the option, I think there should be an option for a hauler to say, I know I can do X amount of households, and in this area, there are X amount of households, so I could do this contract for this. So that's what I think,
Yeah,
right? Because it's, I mean, as you said, HOAs, and they're all area specific, you're gonna be able to see who's not in there and how many households are in that area. So I mean, it probably makes it more difficult for the RFP, but to say it's all or nothing to me is,
We've heard the talk about like consortium or splitting, and there becomes challenges with that. I'm not going to get into some of the more legal challenges, but there's nothing that's stopping two or more contractors from saying, we're going to submit a joint bid together because I can only do this amount, this number of households, and you can do this number of households. That's fine if they want to do that. Nothing prohibits them from doing that. One of the challenges we've heard in talking with how you manage contracts for cities like this, and when you get into issues of districting, is you get them price point differences. You can't expect contractor A and contractor B and contractor C to all hold the same great deal for all of their customers, or you end up with parts of your city that are paying more than other parts of other cities for the exact same service.
well, I mean, and I think that goes into the RFP win, right? You can have one company that says, I can do all of these for this amount, and you have another one that says, I can do this many for this amount, and you know, that cannot, and then you look and see who's got the best and all the things you go through to see that.
Yeah, we've kind of heard some of that discussion as like the consortium of, I get the right to refuse or to pick up this district if I can match their prices, and I don't know that we've had a full conversation with legal about whether or not in the state of Missouri that's legal.
Okay.
And we have heard from contractors saying it might not be, but we'll find a workaround.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that.
And I'm
figure
not
it
so
out.
comfortable about working around the law. Okay,
Well,
I want to follow
understand
the
that.
law,
We have a
yes.
department for that, right. Okay, and so then the second thing was new containers. So, like, I understand everybody needs a container, but do you know how many containers people have in their backyards because they switch providers and the providers don't pick up how much waste is that? And then they're just gonna be, I mean, if you need a container, absolutely get a container. If your container gets damaged, yeah, replace it. But why force people to get new containers? That's a huge waste. And if you talk to Mark about how easy those things are to recycle, they will tell you they're not easy. So,
Yeah, I don't know that we're not definitely anticipating a lot of recycle or any recycle in any of those containers. As Mr. Anderson said, we haven't yet been able to work through the transition plan of new containers, what you do with the old containers. I do know that we will have to take care of all residents in that transition, whether they're the containers they're using or stored containers in the backyard. We're going to have a process for that and a strategy for that transition to occur quickly. That's also part of our dialogue with all of the trash companies, saying how would they propose that transition to occur. You give opportunity for the former provider to go pick it up, but more than likely they're not. They're not going to pick it up. We know that. So then what do we do for that contingency? Is it the new contractor goes out and maybe they want to pick it up? Or maybe it's the city that has to go out, with a flatbed and we're picking them up. We don't know yet. We still need to fully explore that transition.
yeah, well, I think within that transition exploration, I think the part of it should be, if you don't need a container yet, we're not going to give you one. If you already have one that is perfectly fine, I mean, understandably, they're not all going to look the same, but we've already said they're not all going to look the same in Lee Summit anyways, because if you're in an HOA, you don't have to leave yours, right? So,
Okay,
yeah.
but that's good feedback. We can certainly consider that. So if you've got an acceptable container, can you continue to use that without replacing it?
Until it needs replacing.
Or until you
and then-
call and you say you want a new one?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
And
that's good
then the
feedback.
third thing I have is towards the senior discount. I really don't think relying on Jackson County is a good idea. I think we should maybe ask these haulers how they're doing that already and
Support, they're just not very vocal. You're doing what they want them to do. And I think the representation that we have on the task force, they're aware of that. They're aware of the HOAs they represent and all of those HOA members that are saying, do this. And so I think they're taking a measured weight of what the feedback they've got from those sources versus feedback they have personal knowledge of within their communities, whether that be an HOA community or just in their neighborhoods without HOA representation. We've seen that feedback in other comments. Again, we didn't collect them from the Nextdoor sites and the other Facebook pages, but there is a lot of positive feedback and a lot of counter argument that's being spread around those two, and we didn't look at that.
And I wasn't even considering that feedback. I was considering the feedback that I've received personally and from emails, and then,
Let me add just a little bit to that.
gosh, it made me think. So what do you think?
I'm sorry,
Go ahead,
before you go to
ahead.
the next question, I just want to add on a little bit to your previous question. You know, one of the things we talked about at the very kickoff meeting was the roles and responsibilities of the task force. And the roles and responsibilities of the task force do not include, should we go forward? That's a question for City Council. So those are just a lot of that public input and comments are something I think you guys need to take into consideration. Once we, have an RFP, if we go down that path, I asked them to, my direction to them was, look, City Council has decided we want to go forward with an RFP. That doesn't mean to say we're going forward with a single hauler contract. That means we're going forward with an RFP. The role and responsibility of this task force is, if we're going to do that, what does that RFP need to look like? And that's really that's where their focus was.
So in my conversations with you, Mr. Mark.
Yes.
You said that we had to go through this process. We had
Yes.
to go through the entire process. We couldn't, so we have people that don't want to do it.
Of course,
We can't stop
we
can't stop in the middle of it and say they don't want to do it, and we're going to stop in the middle of it. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. This initiative was not staff-driven. This initiative was brought to staff from the City Council. And City Council 9-0 said, move forward. 9-0 said, issue the statutory notice to tell haulers we intend to change. The decision isn't made until you see all of the proposals received, and I know I'm repeating myself. You see all the information so that you can make a decision whether to contract or not. The direction from council, the full council, and it was unanimous, and I sat up here multiple times, I said, are you sure? There will be a lot of opposition. We expect opposition, but it's a very vocal minority, and I tell you that. It is a very vocal minority, and they are very loud, and they are very passionate, and we respect that. But you will face that, and you are facing that. But you all unanimously said, proceed, issue the notice, proceed, here's the engagement plan, proceed, deliver a request for proposals, and that's what we are doing until we get it back to the full council. We advertise it, we open it, and then you make a decision. That's the process that staff was directed to deliver. And nowhere in that process say, stop this. And I don't think that's in the purview of the committee to stop something that the full council and mayor directed staff unanimously to proceed with.
And so it's in the comprehensive plans. The solid waste initiative was in that comprehensive, or the strategic plan.
Oh, yeah,
It was
it's
there. So that is what brought it forward. I just want people to understand the reason for all of this and why this is happening, is that we didn't just make it up and it started.
Yes.
I personally am not for it, but I voted for it because it's not about me. It's about the residents here in Lee Summit and what they wanted to do. So I guess what I'm just saying is that all this is because we're bringing it forward so we can explore it to see if people really want to move forward with this. And then we will, as a council, weigh in on all this information, the task force and everything else, and then make the final decision on that based on, our citizen input.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to take into consideration all the information, which you don't know until you open the request for proposals, because we haven't even developed a proposal or advertised it, and you haven't received anything. You don't know what the costs are to know whether or not it's a good value proposition, right? And you're right, Councilmember Rader, this is not even started a year ago. This has been in multiple strategic plans of the city, the Ignite plan, before that, the LS 360 plan. This has been an endeavor of the cities, not staff, not necessarily the city council, but the city at large for a very long time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, I had a quick question.
Yes.
So, because we keep saying maybe not everybody's voices are represented, because maybe the ones who are opposed, or, when we go put a review on something, it's usually negative when we make the effort. So, I don't know, my question just comes from, if that's the case, which it usually is there a reason why this isn't something that we could put on a ballot, so that way people are going to the polls anyway, so if they're passionate or this is something they truly want, then their kind of vote is their voice, so to speak. So is that not something that we could do, so it's not just something that we're deciding off of a few emails we get, or?
Well, that could be a city council discussion. I don't think there's anything that prohibits you to taking it to a ballot measure, like a vote of confidence, that you've opened the proposals and you want to go get the public's vote on whether or not to approve that contract. I don't know, Mr. Eisen, if that's an issue. I know, though, that it's normally an administrative function of you as elected representatives, of your districts, to make administrative decisions on behalf. We contract, you saw it tonight, we contract all the time, and we don't go out to a ballot measure, but you might see this particular issue differently.
Scott Eisen, Chief Counsel of Infrastructure and Recreation for the city. It is not unusual that you see cities sometimes go out for an advisory election. This is not a mandatory election like you would normally have when you're dealing with a sales tax or the election of a council member. However, sometimes election boards do not allow advisory elections to be put on the ballot. So if that is a desire that you want us to look further into the issue of whether or not an advisory election could be held, we'd have to reach out to the election authority with some more information and get their input on it. But some cities do it. Most cities do not hold advisory elections, though. That is purely within the purview of the city council, who is elected to make that decision on behalf of the city itself.
Okay, I think that's good info to know, maybe when we're getting further in discussion as a full council, kind of.
Yeah, I was exactly my thought, Councilmember Hodges, is I think when this gets out of committee, that would probably be a good conversation for council to take up.
Okay.
And probably give a little time
I
for
like
some
that.
legal research into whether or not an advisory vote would be permissible at all or advisable.
Okay, thank you for that.
Chairman Pryor, any other comments?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can you just kind of outline how this plan is different from what Kansas City is doing?
Yeah, so it's completely different than Kansas City. Kansas City performs the trash collection service. They have the trucks, they have the personnel, they do the billing, they do all the customer service. What City of Lee Summit's proposing is to contract, much like Raymore does, or a majority of communities. I think Kansas City and Olathe, if I recall, and Lawrence might be the only three that actually perform themselves as opposed to contracting.
Okay, and what are some cities around us, just in case anyone wanted to look to see how it's structured, what are some cities around us that do it the contracted version?
So, Raymore, Peculiar, Pleasant Hill, Greenwood, Warrensburg, Liberty, North Kansas City. Sorry, I'm just repeating because he's not down here at the mic. Those are a number on the Missouri side. And then there's obviously quite a few on the Kansas side as well, Merriam's, and we mentioned Olathe, Kansas City. There's quite a few.
Okay, thank you. Any other additional questions or comments?
I just have one, and I'm sure you guys are doing this, but the information that we've gathered from other cities surrounding us that already are doing this, the advisory boards being able to look through that information as well, yes?
So we're sharing all of the feedback with the advisory board that we're getting, not only from peer communities that we get information, but also with our consultant that's been sharing information with us. We're having a good dialogue with the advisory, the task force.
I just wanted to make sure, I was sure that you guys were doing that, but I just wanted to make sure that they were privy to all information we had.
Our first meeting was essentially all background.
Okay.
Talking about what other people are doing.
Great, thank you.
Is the consultant that we're using, is it Mid-America Regional Council, or is it an outside consultant?
No, we have an on-call environmental consultant, SCS. You've probably heard us talk about them before.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
So next steps are the task force will wrap up their work, which is really privileged work among the task force and staff in developing the RFP. And then we bring their information, their feedback back to you because they're not making any decisions. They're just providing advice. It will be ultimately you who decides what should be in that RFP that you recommend to the full council. So I expect next month, as you kind of see in this timeline, this is the same timeline that council approved unanimously back in March. We'll be, I think, ready to have a more comprehensive set of key elements to show you for that RFP. Maybe it'll be the whole final kind of meat of the RFP. I don't know that it'll be ready for you to recommend, but it's possible in October to recommend it to council. More likely than not, it'll be in November Public Works Committee where you end up considering a RFP to recommend to full council. That would hit the timeline that we had committed the council as they requested to have an RFP available to advertise by the end of the year. And that would give them over the holidays a nice, at least probably 4 to 6 week period to consider the RFP, develop their proposals, make submissions, and then just after New Year, the City Council would consider those proposals, review them, and potentially award. Again, no decision. That's the decision point, is whether or not to award after you've seen all the information. And for everybody that's watching, if it moves through that process, there's still no change until the earliest July 2027. So that would give you almost a year and a half of a contractor's preparations, public engagement, get ready for, the education and the change and the transition, all that to happen over about an 18-month period. And that's the quickest it would occur.
And then just to kind of reiterate a little bit of what Councilmember Rader said. So after all of this, it comes to council. If the prices aren't where we thought that they would be, or they're higher than what people are currently paying, or there's something about it we don't like, we can just scrap the whole thing.
Right, so
Or we can choose to move forward.
it's really what you consider that value proposition that you're going to consider. It's not just price. Maybe it's customer service you don't like, or the total services. There's a lot that could factor into it. I think price is probably the most important one. But yeah, if the prices come in and they're not competitive with what HOAs are getting or what they're able to get on their own individuals, it really doesn't make any sense, right? But if the prices come in really good, you're going to have a tougher decision to make. And, then at that point, is it the price or is it the price and customer service? And you start weighing out those different criteria that we have yet to really have any conversation with the task force on what's most important. What's most important after price, because it's not going to always just be price.
And if we want to prioritize local, then we can do that during that time, correct?
The proposal will allow the council the flexibility to weigh whatever consideration you have. So it will be like lowest and best. Whatever you feel best means is really your purview as council members making that decision.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Yep.
Any other comments? Nope. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So I guess that moves us on to Roundtable.
Do we get to talk at Roundtable?
Yeah.
Okay, Chair. Thank you,
Councilmember
Chair.
Rader?
Thank you. I received, and I think maybe we all are, I don't know, but it's my district, so Colburn Library. Is there any way that we can put some kind of signage out there? Because I guess they're having accidents, near misses, like a slow down sign, a caution sign, they're U-turning constantly to get in there. Is there anything that we can do to help alleviate that problem?
Well, I know we've had staff look at signs, and some signing I think was done over closer to Rice Road, and we're kind of dabbling in the middle of somebody else's project, which is never advised to have the city start to take over work that a developer is responsible for. And every time we say, well, we'll go out and do something, the developer gives us another status update between them and the library. And it's like, well, do we want to go spend money and tear out what they've done to make an interim condition? And then they say, well, we're on it. And then, weeks pass and no progress is made. We can continue to look, see if there's some additional U-turn signs that could be made down closer to Ball. I think that's where people are doing U-turns. Though I did get an update earlier this morning from the development project manager, Mr. Reddy, who said that everything is done except their plat. We're waiting on a submittal of their plat because the library and developer have agreed on all the terms and transactions done, but you have to plat the area. And staff is ready to expedite and approve the plat. The bids have been received for the construction, both by the library and developer to complete the work, and the work's estimated to be 4 weeks. So it's my understanding as soon as they resubmit the plat, it'll be very quickly reviewed and approved. And at that point, the contractors on behalf of the library and the developer can continue among their business and hopefully get this wrapped up in November. That's the latest information I got as of this morning.
So I don't, help me understand, I know we don't want to interfere in the developer and what's going on there, and I get that. But aren't we responsible for the streets? They aren't responsible for our streets.
Well, while they're under their permit, they have responsibility for the streets. And I'll say there's been missteps on the city's part along this way, to say the least. You know, that we could have done things differently. We recognize that, making process changes. Honestly, the plan should not have been approved, and I'll say that. City should not have approved those plans without them having fully secured all their property, and we took it on their word that they were going to get the property to complete the improvements. And it's been nearly a year that their promise has been broken as a developer. We were trying to be developer-friendly. We were trying to say, you said you were going to get it? Okay, we'll go ahead and approve this so you can get started. You can get this work done. By the time you get to the library's entrance, you'll have all the easements you need to complete the job. They didn't. Just lesson learned, right? Don't approve things. I hate to say, but there are times where we just can't be developer-friendly. We have to move forward. That was the mistakes that were made on our part. There are challenges along the way that the developer and library, through miscommunications, never saw eye to eye on until the very end, when the city had to get involved as kind of a broker between the two. We had to mediate their meetings to bring them to the table to finally make progress. And that was really our role through this project. And so the developer and the library do have responsibility for even part of those public roads, because that's where they're making the improvements. That's where they've been approved to make improvements. And unfortunately, even in this case, I don't think we have all the financial securities that we could have kicked them off, another lesson learned, and take over the work with their money. We're making improvements in this area. Okay. So yeah, we could not tell them to leave, pull their bonds, complete the job. We didn't have that hammer that we would have expected we would have had or should have had.
Well, I hope that people are listening.
Yeah. Well, I hope the developer is too.
I do too. Maybe we'll give them a phone call. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair.
Councilmember Carlisle?
Thank you. I just have really a question, a request for an update on Pryor Road. Do we know where we're at on that? How far out? How long is it going to be closed?
For the Pryor Road project, it's a 2-year job.
So it's going to be closed for the next 2 years?
Yeah.
That's the biggest complaint I'm getting, is when does it open back up? There's so much traffic everywhere. So, okay. Not for 2 years.
Yeah.
They haven't made any great
Oh, they're making good
leaps
progress.
and bounds. Well, I see it. I see it. It looks like they are. Okay, 2 years. Sorry, guys, 2 years.
No, we've been under construction for a little while, so it's not 2 years anymore.
Oh, well, almost 2 years.
It's 2.5 miles and, $25 million. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, let's hope we don't close another one down before we get some more open. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
To piggyback off of her question, I've gotten quite a few comments left. Okay, the turn arrow Ward Road, during high traffic times, it backs way up and no one can turn left because of the other traffic going the other way. Have we thought about a left turn arrow right there next to like PLE and PLMS?
At Purcell's. Mm-hmm. Oh, we have. There's a project that's been 100% designed.
I know that whole thing's going to be redone.
It's ready to go to construction.
But.
And yes. No, not that we can't do it till the other one's done. We'd be happy to do it, and we would keep Ward Road open. Purcell's to the east would be closed temporarily for its relocation. We can't begin to bid that project. It does have federal funds until Jackson County, we come to resolve our difference there. We did sue them condemnation. We had a federal mediation. We've tried to keep you guys apprised of the status of that project. But as soon as we have all the terms of that mediation met, at any point in time, county could just say, this is fine, continue, and we would start construction. But that project will provide left turn lanes, intersection consolidation, the turn arrows you're talking about, tremendous safety improvement.
Does there have to be a turn lane for a turn arrow?
There does, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've investigated numerous ways because they're offset and it's 4 lanes. Just one car that wants to turn left backs up everybody that wants to go through.
Can we make it like no left turn during a specific time?
That's actually been talked about, yes. And, you know, when it gets so busy, especially with the closure at Pryor Road, granted, a lot of people don't follow the signs, no matter how much you make them visible and you try to enforce them, but we have considered time-restricted left turns because it's so busy. You know, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, when it's busy, just say no left turns to try to get some of that congestion cleared. I would advise when it's really congested like that and it's backed up from Purcell's north to Longview, try to stay in the outside lane, go through and turn at Shear and head east in that direction, and you'll save yourself a lot of time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right. I think we're good. Any staff roundtable?
Just mention that next week is our snow training week, and you all are invited if you'd like to come out. Probably Thursday or Friday. Certainly Friday we have a lunch that anybody who participated or you're all invited. Yeah, hopefully you've gotten some message already on it. There's a sign up if you'd like to come out and drive a dump truck and go through the plow course. You're welcome to do that or just hang out. I know I've seen some of you before out at the Snow Week events. So yeah, so that's all next week. We have Public Works going through training on Monday, Water Utilities going through training on Tuesday. Wednesdays, other staff members or those that couldn't make Monday or Tuesday, it's going through that training at that point, and then more of your celebrity drive, kind of other people on Thursday or last minute pickups, and then Fridays are lunch and kind of celebration. Of course, if you didn't do it and you'd like to, you can always reach out to us and we can have one-offs, because I know some people take vacations and they're going to miss Snow Week altogether. Yeah.
I think Councilmember Rader needs to text me because I forgot last year. I will. Remember when Councilmember Edson, well, no, you weren't there, but she made our shirts. She had the shirts made.
I do remember the shirts, yes.
What did it say? I was plowed or something?
Yes, yes.
Something, yeah. They were cute.
And it's out at the maintenance facility. That's where we do snow.
We have to make an appointment though, right?
I would prefer, if you need to, yeah, I prefer you make an appointment so we know when.
Just
when you
don't
can be
show
there.
up.
I'm not an appointment kind of.
Except for lunch. You can just show up to lunch. You don't need an
Okay.
appointment.
I want to drive the truck.
All right.
You can just go do that anytime you want to. You're a council member.
That's all I have.
All right. Then I guess we'll adjourn the meeting as of 6:56.